Hello, football fans. I'm Cameron Songer, joined today by KENS5.com sports writer David Flores. We're previewing the 2019 high school football season. David, we're talking about the season starting in just days now.
Yeah, it's days away, and it's always it's a rite of late summer. You know, what would it be like if we didn't have these preseason workouts with the kids practicing in 100-degree weather, and that's just the temperature, and it feels like more than that and stuff. But it's really every year is really a crucible, so to speak. You know, they've got to get through it. It's a trial, but once they come out of it, it amazes me how they can get through all that. You know, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you are too.
Absolutely, those long hot days will have a payoff with the Friday night, Thursday night, and I guess also Saturday night lights at times as well.
Right.
Let's jump right into it. We'll start with District 26 6A, and that's one of those districts where it seems to be a pretty clear favorite this year in the Judson Rockets.
Yes, I think that they are. Although Steele is going to be pretty good. You know, they got Jalen Jones, who's coming into A&M, who's just a tremendous player. He's a cornerback, and they've got their quarterback back, Brady Beal. That's Steele. But then Judson, of course, has got Mike Chandler, the second back at quarterback. They've got some tremendous athletes. And I know it's cliche, and here's the first one of the season, but the Judson Rockets don't rebuild, they reload. Okay, I'll get that one out of the way. So, Judson's going to be good. Of course, they're starting under a new coach, Rodney Williams, who had been their offense coordinator for these last few seasons, was promoted to interim head coach. But it'll probably be that's Sean McAuliffe, believe it or not, when the guy he's replacing, who went to the Houston area to coach, he was kind of appointed the interim coach, and he stayed for 5 years. So he's going to do a good job. Rodney Williams is a great guy. He's got a way with those kids. He's got a good he's got a good rapport with them. And like I said, he's replacing Sean McAuliffe, who went to Cypress Ranch. That's where he went to, Houston Cypress Ranch. And so
from one power to another.
One power to another. They're going to be good. But then look at that district. What do you say? What would you say? Cameron, it's probably arguably the toughest district in our area as far as when I say toughest, I mean the quality of the teams. You've got
there's a lot of depth
Valley,
there.
Clemens.
Yeah, I mean, really, there are no off nights in District 26 6A. And Judson and Steele, right off the bat, that's two games that are really tough. If you're any other team in the district, and when those two teams face off, man, that's a battle.
That's a battle. That's a great game. I think this year they'll be meeting at Lenhoff Stadium. Smithson Valley has under its belt some appearances in the state finals, albeit in the second highest classification. Steele has won its state championship. Judson has won 5 or 6 and all, and so Clemens is certainly no slouch. And then I think we're picking, as far as the offensive player of the year preseason, we're saying we're going to throw it out there. We're going to go with Mike Chandler, from Judson. He's just good. He's going to take another step. This year he transferred from Johnson last year, so he's part of that. He knows the system better, has a good command of the offense. And then, of course, defensively, you got to go with Jalen Jones, who is good. And not only is he our preseason player of the year, but he was the Texas football. They have, how they have that super team. He was the high school, not 6A, on the whole super team. He was the player of the year of the whole state. So he must be a dude. That's what they call real good players, right? A dude. He's a dude.
Yeah, Steele has that history of developing really good defensive backs. Right. And then talking about that Judson offense again, though, Sincere McCormick, obviously the running back from a year ago at UTSA now, so that's a big hole to fill. But like you said, the Rockets are reloaded. Yeah, and they also lost Rashawn Wisdom, who's a safety, who's at UTSA. But they've got so many good backs. They'll pull one out of the PE class or whatever and come up with a good running back. Looking at the rest of that district pretty quickly, I think the really interesting fight for that will be for that last playoff spot, that number 4 spot. You have Clemens, New Braunfels, Canyon, East Central, and San Marcos. I think any of them could be there. I think right now we're saying Clemens probably has the inside track for that 4th spot, but man, that could come down to one game or really one quarter.
If they should falter, New Braunfels is getting better. They're getting better. They're coached by Glenn Mangold, who was an assistant for years under Jim Streety, who was at Madison, the winningest coach in the area history. Of course, he's the athletic director there now. Keep your eye on East Central. They've got a good coach, Joe Hubbard over there. Does a tremendous job with the Hornets. They could, if things fall in place, they could make some noise in the district race. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be but like the coaches say, you better bring it every week because it's going to be. You've got the top tier, but let me tell you, that bottom half is not all that bad.
Before we jump to the next district, we'll talk really quick about the second year now of this current realignment, which has the San Antonio area teams taking on the Austin teams pretty early in the playoffs, David.
Right. And well, last year, Judson had a 12-0 record. They had a good ball club, but they ran into Lake Travis again, and they lost the state quarterfinals. And so that's a mountain right there. That's a tough nut to crack. Lake Travis Austin Lake Travis has got a tremendous program. But it's going to happen sooner or later. Judson has beaten Houston area teams in state semifinals and all, but right now the burden of proof is on the San Antonio teams, and we can talk a little bit about Westlake. They beat another team, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
District 27 6A, another really good, pretty deep district in San Antonio. Reagan looks like our preseason pick, but this is one I think could be a little bit more wide open.
I think so. It is wide open. There was a time that Reagan owned that district championship. They won 4 consecutive district championships under David Wetzel, who is now on the staff at Baylor. And then they got knocked off, the first year he left, they got knocked off by Johnson. Johnson won district in their 10th year of existence. That's how they capped their 10th year of existence. They won their district championship. And then last year, Madison I'm not going to say it came out of nowhere. Madison had been struggling for a few years since Jim Streety left, and they came back and they won. So it's been a 2-year absence for Reagan. Not that they've been chopped liver. They've still have won 9 games, and they've been tough, but they haven't won district. And those kids, they won it back.
Yeah, both Madison and Reagan reaching the area round last year. Johnson and Churchill were the other 2 playoff teams out of 27 6A. Really interesting to see how this district will shake out. Reagan brings back a lot of skill and size, but Madison, like you said, the defending champs until someone knocks them off.
They've got to replace the quarterback. Dante Hagens, who was really, really good. He's over at Incarnate Word, and I think he's playing wide receiver. He's not a quarterback, but his brother is our preseason defense player of the year. He's a safety, Deshaun Hagens. He's tough. He's a really, really good player. And then of course Travis Staley, who is committed to play baseball at Texas. He's a heck of a baseball player. He's their quarterback, and he started last year. He's a tough hombre. He's a good quarterback. And what I kept hearing when I was working on that district, every coach without any just unsolicited told me the team to watch out for is Roosevelt. And Roosevelt hasn't been in the playoffs in a while. I think it's been 6 straight years that they haven't been in the playoffs, at least that long. But Matt Carroll does a heck of a job. They've had injuries. They've been young at times, but everybody's saying they lost a lot of close games last year in the fourth quarter. Watch them. They could really make some noise in that district race. And we have a pegged as finishing 4th, but they could move up. And then of course Johnson is Johnson. Ron Ritterman at Johnson does a heck of a job. He's one of the best coaches in the city.
Yeah, Roosevelt last year finishing 4 and 6. Churchill got that last playoff spot, but they don't have a lot of returning talent. I think that's one we could look at and say, hey, Roosevelt kind of slips with Churchill there in the middle of the pack.
If Roosevelt falters, if they stumble, Churchill will be there, to pick it up and go and stuff, because Ron Harris does. And Churchill's Churchill. They've got a winning habit. They've got the championship pedigree.
And further down in that district, Southside, it was their first time, or it was their first year playing in that realigned district. They finished 2-8, and Lee right now on an 18-game losing streak. So there's some interesting stuff at the bottom of that district in terms of the teams that sort of struggled last year. But another, like we said with other districts, tough from top to bottom.
You never know. Lee, I tell you what, they've lost 18 in a row, but those kids play hard every week. They just don't have the numbers that the other schools have. And Danny Closa, their coach, what an inspirational leader. He's starting, I think, his 10th season there. He's a cancer survivor. He had cancer about 10 years ago, and after what he's been through, he just kind of, whenever those kids make excuses, hey, he says, "Oh, this is just gravy for me." And he's a Lee graduate. So he loves the school. He's got this emotional bond, with Lee High School, and you won't find a better guy, a better coach, and he really connects with those kids. Those kids play for him every week. And I have to say this about Southside. Southside, I feel for them. In the last realignment, they're going, where are we going to put Southside? So they stuck them over here. They're Southside. I mean, South San Antonio. They put them over here in the Northeast district, but they play hard. Coach Kurtz does a great job over there, and they get a lot of compliments throughout the district that they're very fundamentally sound.
It's one of those things now where you're looking at the second year of a realignment that out of the 2-year cycle. There's that familiarity that wasn't there a year ago, could be there a little bit more, and that could work for and against certain teams throughout the whole region.
Right. Yeah, that realignment, whoever does that, there's a lot of things I wouldn't want to do. That may be at the top of my list. I wouldn't want to be in charge of the realignment book, because how do you do that? I mean, it's just tough. It's just tough.
It seems like that's like a referee where the only time you're doing it right is if no one notices what you're doing.
Because people are going to be upset and all that kind of stuff. Not everybody's going to be happy.
District 28 6A now, as we continue going through the San Antonio districts in the 6A classification. This is the Northside ISD, O'Connor, Brandeis, O'Connor. How do they stack up this year?
I tell you what, the last couple of years, O'Connor's won. They've been perfect in district play, and so they've won at least 18 consecutive games right there as far as district games. And I don't know how many they won the previous year. Forgive me for not having that number, but we know they've won at least 18.
It's a lot. They win a lot.
They're good. David Molesky is starting his 10th season there as head coach. He's very fundamental. His players are very intense. He's a Judson graduate, played on their first state championship team in '83. But then you have Brandeis with David Branscombe, who's a heck of a coach. And last year they went 11-3, made it to the state quarterfinals. This is where the other Austin school comes in. They lost to Austin Westlake in the state quarterfinals, and that knocked them off. But like I told him, just saw him this morning, and I said, anytime you go 4 rounds of the playoffs, which is the state quarterfinals, that's a good season. But they're not going to be happy with that. But that's really, Cameron, when you get right down to it, that's our Big Ten. There are 10 schools. Count them, 10 schools, and you only play one. Obviously, you only play one non-district game, and then you jump right into it. And boy, it's a tough district. And the offensive player of the year is Jordan Battles, who keep your eye on. Next year, we'll be talking a lot more about this young man. He's a junior, and he started last year. He's just a tremendous athlete. He's a classic this kind of offense that they run, where they spread people out and they, the dual threat quarterback, the zone read. He can do it all. He can throw. He's tough. He's already getting a lot of looks from recruiters. And then the defensive player of the year is none other than Frank Wilson IV. And if Frank Wilson, that name, yes, he's the son of the UTSA football coach. He's a heck of a player. He transferred there last year. Started out at Central Catholic, and then he transferred. And he's a very, very good defensive player. So those two teams are good, but by no means, talk about the rest of the teams.
Yeah, really quick though, before we get to that, Frank Wilson, I believe, committed to UTSA.
Yes.
No surprise.
Yeah, no surprise there. Yeah.
And Jordan Battles, the numbers he put up last year, breaking all kinds of records for Brandeis as a sophomore quarterback.
Yes.
The amount of time he still has. Hope you're not tired of hearing his name, because you're going to hear it a lot more. But yeah, there's plenty of offensive talent in this district.
And the O'Connor's got a player, Parr, his first name.
Logan Parr.
Logan Parr, who's committed. Who's committed to UT.
Yeah.
So they're a little quick aside here. We've got talented players down here that are FBS quality players. We just don't have obviously as many as Houston and the Metroplex, because they have more people.
A lot more.
Their talent pool is a lot deeper, but we've got, relatively speaking, we've got a lot of good players here.
Yeah, the rest of this district, last year O'Connor ran the table. Warren, Brennan, and Brandeis all made the playoffs at 7-2 in district.
Yeah.
It feels like this is a district where there might be a little bit of a gap between those playoff teams, those 4 playoff teams, and then teams 5 through 10. Some of these teams have had some struggles in terms of building a consistent program year after year. Holmes, Marshall, Taft,
Clark.
A little bit of a downswing right now, but it only takes 1 year. It only takes
one year. Takes 1 year, and I have to say something about Brennan. Their coach Steve Baser does a heck of a job there, and they've been to the state finals. Like I said earlier, albeit in the second largest classification, I believe it was in 2013. They lost to the state finals, but they're good. They've got a tradition there, and then Warren is good. Warren, their coach Jeff Robbins does a heck of a job, and. The reason we bring up coaching, maybe we could say that, is it kind of, on high school level, coaching means a lot. The players win the game, but at this level, coaching is very, very important, because obviously it's the kind of the foundation at the start of it and all. But no, you're right. You bring up a good point about the bottom half. And I might mention too, Cameron, that Stevens is opening a new era, so to speak, or a new Anthony Boykin is the coach there. He came over from Marshall. And then Clark is starting also with a new coach, J.L. Geist, I believe, who came from Stafford Dulles, who I believe is the alma mater of Jack Acosta, who played football there, played defensive end.
Shout out.
Our news
Shout out to our news director.
Our
at
news
10's
director,
5,
I believe, played for the Stafford Dulles Vikings. I knew a guy when I played ball for a year at Texas Lutheran that was from Dulles, and that's why I remember he was proud of the mighty Vikings. So there you go.
You mentioned the importance of coaching. One of the things that people who watch the Netflix series Last Chance U, the coach at Independence, he liked to say the coaching doesn't really matter. It's about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. Yeah. You think in high school that's not necessarily the case?
No, I mean, no coach wins without, you got to have talent. Obviously, you know, like they say, I've had coaches tell me that talent sure does help the quality of life when you go home. You know, your household is a lot happier if you have talent. But by the same token, and you know how this goes. This pertains even to college and the pros. You can have talent and not win.
Oh yeah.
The road is littered with the hopes and dreams of talented teams that did not make it. You know, that did not make it to the big show. And then you give me a team that's got some talent, some pretty good talent, and then some really good coaching, and that they, you know, there's a lot of variables involved, of course. If the kids have got to play for each other, you've got to have a little luck, you got to stay healthy and all that kind of stuff. But the coaching, I guess I say because at that level, these kids are they're kids. It's a very impressionable and
50-something, 16, 17, and 18
Your livelihood depends on that and stuff. And so these coaches, by and large, try to do a good job in bringing these kids along.
Quick mention now of District 12 5A. It's a pretty big geographic district. We do have one team from the San Antonio area in that district, and those are the Seguin Matadors. That's a tough league.
Boy, you got Dripping Springs, Austin LBJ, you know, that some of the Austin area teams. Seguin, we might mention, since we mentioned Coach Wilson earlier, is coached by Travis Bush, who was UTSA's first offense coordinator. And then he left after 1 or 2 seasons, and he went and coached at college and even had a stint with the Buffalo Bills, I think, as an assistant. But he's now back. He's been back for a few years at Seguin. And there was a time that Seguin was really, really good. They got it going. And that's one of those situations where it's a one high school town. So if they get it going, they start winning, that whole town will go, you know, like they did back in the 60s and early 70s. You know, they really, of course, that's a long time ago, but still.
They made their first playoff appearance since 2006, and yeah, there was some energy in Seguin last year. District 13 5A D1, this is kind of a one-team district in terms of when you're talking about the playoff picture.
Well said.
It's Wagner and then everybody else.
Yeah, boy, Wagner. Remember Wagner? Wagner was in 6A. You know that district that we talked about a while ago, the arguably the toughest district with Judson, Steele, Smithson Valley, Clemens. Wagner was in that district. And, of course, they're in the Judson ISD, so they're a sister school of Judson High School. And they were dropped to 5A because they didn't have, obviously, the enrollment, the numbers for 6A. But, boy, I tell you what, they didn't play like a 5A team last year.
They took advantage of the arguably weaker competition last year. Now those teams have had a year to see them, maybe game plan for them a little bit, but that's much easier said than done.
Yeah, they had to put them in somewhere, so they wound up putting them in the district with the SISD schools. And then Veterans Memorial is the third high school, the Judson ISD. It's coached by Coach Mendoza, and they do a heck of a job. I think they went 8-4. They went 8-4. They went. They finished runner-up, and they went 2 rounds into the playoffs. And this, well, what did Wagner do? Well, Wagner, all they did was, you know, go all the way to state semifinals, and they lost 1 game. That was to Judson. It was 35-28. But the Judson people are always quick to tell me that they were way ahead, but they kind of let up a little bit, and Wagner came back. But it was a 35-28. It was a 7-point game. But Wagner's they've got some talent. L.J. Butler, sophomore fullback last year, obviously a junior this year, rushed for just a little over 2,000 yards, 2,028 to be precise.
That's a lot. That's a big number.
32 touchdowns, Cameron. 32. And then the guy on the defensive, so obviously he's our offensive player preseason going into the season. And our defensive player of the year is DeMarcus Hendricks, who's a defensive end. He's being recruited and pretty good, and service academies like him and all that. All he did last year was get 14 sacks. That's all. You know, it was a long season, but he got 14 sacks. And the big question for them: will they be as good? They're going to win the district, but will they be as good as they were last year? Because they lost their quarterback Tobias Weaver, who signed with Navy. He's at the prep school this year as a freshman. they run the kind of option. That's why the Service Academy because they run that veer, that option, midline option, all that, and so that gives them, not only do they have good athletes, but week to week that gives them an advantage over the opposition because nobody runs the veer anymore. So you've got to get ready in 1 week to try to stop these guys, and it's all sleight of hand, option, and you got to breed and all of you. And if you mess up defensively, and Weaver was very good at running the option last year.
Well, you talk about something that's hard to prepare for. Not only is it a team that has a ton of talent, but it's that system that teams are not used to playing against.
Right.
That makes it just doubly difficult to prepare for.
You put it together, and it's tough,
But you mentioned Veterans Memorial. They were just in their first varsity season a year ago.
Yeah,
what a debut, right? Winning 8 games.
What a memorable. Richard Mendoza did a good job there with them. He's building a program. He's another former Judson player. He played for the Judson Rockets, and he's built the program the same way. He says we're going to try to do it the right way and all. And they've just, like I said, they got to the second round. They only lost. I think they only lost 1 district game, right? Yeah, that was to Wagner. And Wagner, pretty much, put it to them. But they put it to a lot of teams and all. So that's they're going to be good. But then you've got the rest of them. You've got Breckenridge made the playoffs last year. Sam Houston made the playoffs. Those are old San Antonio school district teams.
Talk about the tradition at Breckenridge. Coach Willie Hall is going into his 25th season there.
As head coach. He's been around. He's synonymous with Breckenridge. And then keep in mind that Breckenridge, of course, it's a long time ago, but in 1962 won a state championship, and so they've never quite forgotten it. And all in Sam Houston. Watch Burbank. They finished 6-4 last year. Finished with a better record than they did the year before, but they didn't make the playoffs this time. But Phil Barone at Burbank is, boy, your heart goes out to those guys because they had a winning record last year, and it'd been a while, and there haven't been a lot of winning seasons, but they've been few and far between for Burbank. And then watch Lanier. Don Gatton has been out there a long time coaching there, and then Highlands could be good, with Hank Willis. So yeah, it's but you're right, it's Wagner, Veterans Memorial, and it's really a contest of who's going to get the other 2 playoff spots.
In District 14-5A, Harlan and Southwest Legacy were both first-year programs at the varsity level last year. They had very different results last year. Harlan right up at the top, Southwest Legacy still looking for that first varsity win. This is another interesting district.
It is. We've got, let's see, we've got 5. It's a 7-team district, and we've got 5 schools in that. Harlan, Southwest Harlandale, McCullum, and as you mentioned, Southwest Legacy. And you're right, beautiful school, beautiful. They got their own stadium and all, and John Tarvin did a good job. But boy, it's tough that first year. It's really tough. But Harlan came out of it, and look what they did. They had a good run, and Harlandale is one of the oldest schools, and then Southwest has been around. Southwest dropped. They were 6A and they dropped to 5A, and they won a district last year, so they're pretty good.
Yeah, the other 2 teams I just want to mention really quick: Eagle Pass Win and Laredo Martin.
Or the others, yeah.
But yeah, this is a really interesting district. Not too much success in the postseason last year.
Right.
Out of 14-5A, but Harlan does have Cannon Williams coming back, their quarterback.
He is our KENS 5. Offensive preseason player of the year. He's a quarterback. He's just a junior, so watch him. Cannon Williams, and then on defense it's Marcos Vega from Laredo Martin. So he's a good player. I think he was a newcomer of the year last year as a sophomore. I think he's a junior this year. But it'll be a fun district. It'll be a fun district because those teams are there's not that much of a gap. And watch for Southwest Legacy to take a step. Move the needle a little bit this year. We
mentioned Harlan as sort of a feel-good story as a first-year varsity program, making that leap. Harlandale, I think, was another really feel-good story.
Yes.
Real bounce back after a 1-win season in 2017 to making the playoffs last season, going 6-5 overall.
They've got Albert Torres, who had been at Edison for years, and he replaced Isaac Martinez as head coach there at Harlandale. And when they only won 1 game, I said, this is not going to last. I won't stand. He's too good a coach. He's a very, very dedicated coach. Sure enough, last year they came back and did a good job. And Harlandale, obviously it's at Harlandale ISD. It's Harlandale and McCullum, the 2 schools. and it's really something because they're separated by Southwest Military Drive, you know, and on one side it's the McCullum, on the other side it's Hardale. It's like a little town all unto itself, you know, down there south. You know, south. It's San Antonio, but boy, there's a lot of pride in both of those schools. Harlandale, you know, they've had some great players through the years. Tobin Rote, many years ago, who went to the NFL. I think he played in the NFL championship game, played in the CFL championship game, played in the AFL championship. I think he's the only guy. He's not the only guy to win all three, but he's the only guy I think that played in all three championship games. So Harlandale has got tradition, and all it takes is just a little match to get it going. And you haven't really been to a game here until you go watch the Frontier Bowl. It's the the Harlandale Indians against the McCullum Cowboys. I don't care what the records are, Cameron. They're going to fill up that Harlandale Memorial Stadium. I mean, they tailgate, and the alumni come back. It's a happening.
There are a few rivalry games in San Antonio.
That's one of them. Yeah.
And now feels like a good time to talk about that. Maybe what are some of your other favorite rivalry? The Holy Bowl comes to mind. Central Catholic.
The Holy Bowl, Central Catholic, and
Cross.
Holy Cross is a good one. Of course, the Gucci Bowl. You know, wouldn't you agree, Cameron, that to have a rivalry, it can't be too one-sided.
That is absolutely right.
And no knock at Clark, but Clark used to be one of the best programs in the city, and they've been in the wilderness here for a few years. And Churchill's, you know, hasn't been a state power, but they're still good. They still go to the playoffs. They did real good a few years back. They made it to the quarterfinals or the third round of the playoffs or whatever. Well, Churchill's dominated that series, so I don't know how much longer. But they call it the Gucci Bowl, and people say, why do they call it the Gucci Bowl? Well, because once upon a time, Gucci was the, you know, exclusive thing, and those were the schools that were in more affluent areas. And I'm not saying that Churchill and Clark are not, but it's changed, you know, and stuff. So I don't know. That's good with the Gucci Bowl. Then you've got the Salsa Bowl, which is one of the newest ones. That's Memorial and Kennedy, and they get into it. I mean, don't tell them that's not a big game because they go out, and again, it doesn't matter what their records are and all that. So yeah, there's of course we lost the big one, the Chili Bowl, years back. It was Fox Tech and Lanier that, boy, people used to come in from out of state, and I'm not making exaggerations to come to that game, but it discontinued because Fox Tech dropped football. Fox Tech didn't close, but they didn't have enough people, so they just dropped. Boy, that was kind of a sad day.
District 14-5A D2 now. Kerrville-Tivy, I think, is the leading the way. They're on a streak of 22 straight playoff appearances. Do you think they'll win the district again this year, David?
Yes, they've got some talent. They got some talented people. Although they're I say that I'm being wishy-washy now. They better not stumble because or they better not look over their shoulder or whatever. Alamo Heights and Champion are tough. Champion has got that quarterback. What is it? Lake Boyers or
Luke Boyers.
Luke Boyers. He is. That guy is good. I know last year Keith Kaiser was telling me how good that young man is, and I think he would probably. I don't know if he's being recruited very heavily. He's only 5'11", you know, so that's gonna, the scouts. But as far as he can play. He's a really good player. But yeah, Tivy's got some. Yeah, they've got tradition there. And
they have that history of great quarterback play, and this year should be no exception.
Are you talking about Johnny Manziel? Refer to him. Yeah, they've got Cole Mears. I hope I pronounced that right. Miers. Heck of a quarterback. They always have a good program at Tivy. They're tough in that town. Boy, the Antlers. They have that saying that Tivy fight never dies or something. That whole town goes out there on Friday nights. Quite a setting up in the Hill Country, folks. If you've never been on a game, if you like high school football and you want to go out to the Hill Country, go watch. If you're picking it somewhere, that's not a bad place to go. It's a nice Friday night. That's quite a setting.
Looking at some of the other teams in this district, Medina Valley, Alamo Heights were both just sneaking into the playoffs last year. Do you see that happening again this year?
Yeah, Heights. I actually think Heights. I've got them. I think Texas football. I think had champion too. I think Alamo Heights got to finish runner-up. As good as Alamo Heights is, you talk about. As good as champion is, I've got Heights over them. And talk about quarterbacks. They've got Luke Boyers. Champion does, who's a prolific quarterback. You talk about a good high school dual threat quarterback. The Chargers have got one in that young man. Boyers is tough. I know last year. And even this year, Coach Keith Kaiser, the coach at Champion, just can't stop talking about that guy. Medina Valley starting a new era under Lee Crisp. Chris Sosa, the coach there, left to go to Beeville. And then who else is in that district? Lockhart and Uvalde?
Kennedy and Memorial rounding it out. Yeah, so some interesting rivalry games. I think when we talk about some of these really great teams, you think about 6A at first, but Alamo Heights, Bernie Champion, Kerrville Tivy, anytime those three teams are playing each other, man, that's going to be some really top quality football.
That's going to be something. And then, Memorial, boy, that was a tough situation for Memorial, because the big story 2 years ago was when they had never won a district championship, and Kemi Lewis in his second season took them. They won a district championship. The whole side right there, that little community, they went crazy. They always lost. There was a time I think they lost one time 53 games in a row years back in the 80s and stuff. So they did real good. So what does the UIL do and realignment? Because at that time they were in a district with the SISD. So what do? They put them in with the Hill Country District, and so proof is in the record, and they just won one game last year. They went from 7-4 to 1-9, but and Kennedy also struggled mightily. But those coaches, Kemi Lewis and then Ben Benavides at Kennedy, said, "Hey, our guys are resilient. They're going to keep fighting, and it's just tough. It's just tough because they're in the same classification, but they don't quite have the same numbers. If there's a 4A, a 5A Division II, if you will, well, they're on the lower end of that Division II, whereas obviously there's a range of enrollment, and they don't have the numbers, and also they don't have some of the advantages that those other schools have. But your heart kind of goes out with those kids because they still compete hard."
Another San Antonio district in 5A that's sort of mixed with some schools from outside our region. 15-5A, sort of the leader in that group would be Corpus Christi Calallen.
Yeah.
That is a powerful team, and everybody else in that district kind of trying to play catch up, but Southside isn't that far off.
No, Southside's good. They're we've got them third. We've got them going in there. Calallen, they're one of the powerhouses, elite powerhouses. They're perennial power under Phil Danner, who is the winningest high school coach now in Texas history.
Wow.
So they're right. Calallen is, it's not a separate town. It's in Corpus Christi. It's Corpus Christi Calallen, but it's right outside it's in the city limits, but right when you get into 37 in the Corpus. Phil Danner's been there since the mid '80s, and what a job that he's done, and haven't won state yet. They've come close, but they're
semifinals last year. They're knocking on the door.
And they've been to the finals, and then Port Lavaca Calhoun. Watch them. They're
Sand Crabs, right?
The Sand Crabs.
That's an awesome. Between them and the Unicorns out of New Braunfels, we have enough Bulldogs and Falcons.
Yeah, exactly. That's and then you got Southside, as you mentioned, Gregory Portland, who again they've had a strong tradition for years. Then we have Somerset, which is where Sonny Detmer is, who's the father of Ty Detmer, the former Heisman Trophy winner who played at Southwest for his dad before his dad went to Somerset. And then you got Floresville, then you got Alice at Tolosa Midway. So we've got Cameron, 3 schools in that: Southside, Somerset, and Floresville.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can get overlooked, but definitely wanted to make sure our San Antonio teams in 15-5A got their shout out here.
Yeah, they will. We will, and we'll. There's some talent there, and Sonny Detmer still at Somerset, as I mentioned, and Ricky Lonk does a great job at Southside, and Floresville will be there, and they'll be in the mix. They'll be fighting for a playoff spot.
Some of these 5A teams will get a chance to really get featured a little bit more on KENS 5. That 1 week of the season, I believe it's week 6, where all the 6A teams basically take the week off. Yeah, it's October 4th. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
That's something, the way that happens, right? Yeah, and it's like you're going. Oh, wait a minute.
It's not an accident.
No,
it's definitely scheduled that way on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's before they start. Well, no, because teams are already playing in district.
Especially those Northside teams.
Those Northside teams are already playing. So I don't know how that. I don't know what there's any rhyme or reason, but it is weird because you're already huffing and you're getting your rhythm. You're in routine, and all of a sudden, hey, where'd all the 6A teams? Oh, they're all off. Oh, okay.
It seems like the kind of thing that can either be really good or really bad for a team. It's not really too much in between. If the team is sort of dealing with some early injuries, maybe a game or a bounce that didn't go their way, you get that extra week of practice and preparation. On the other hand, if things are clicking and rolling, suddenly you're breaking that routine of preparing for the Thursday or Friday night game, and it can sort of allow the competition to maybe catch up if they're putting in a new offense or breaking in a new quarterback or what have you. the team that had the early advantage maybe loses some of that advantage as the rest of the field catches up. So that's a really interesting thing. We'll keep an eye on how things
that'd be an interesting thing to study.
Shake out in 6A. But yeah, that week where all those 6A teams are off, the 5A really gets to shine.
Yeah, they'll get theirs. They'll get theirs.
Couple more districts we want to recognize before we wrap things up here. TAPS District 3 in D1. Just a couple of San Antonio teams, and that's Central Catholic and Antonian. They're in a district with some Houston area schools that are really, really good. Yes.
Houston St. Thomas, Houston St. Pius, and then Tomball Concordia Lutheran. And they put them in that new district. That's their second year to be in that district, and boy, they have to travel for district games. That's a lot of travel. But Houston St. Pius and Houston St. Thomas have been good for years, and they compete against some public schools in Houston and do real well. So that's tough. Antonian, I have to mention, Antonian has two players. I was there yesterday, and boy, talk about some good-looking athletes. Coach Van Fushak is the coach there. He had a long career. He was at MacArthur before he got out of public school coaching. After 2010 season, MacArthur made the state quarterfinals. They lost to Steele, which went on to win the state championship. But anyway, this Antonian team has a guy named Khalil Warfield, who's their quarterback. Good-looking athlete, tall. He is signed with UTEP. Okay, he's a tough guy. Then they've got Devin Grant, who's a defensive end, another big guy. He is not signed, committed. Grant has committed to Colorado. So this is a little old Antonian. So they've got some talent, and so right now they're ahead of Central Catholic. And Mike Santiago at Central Catholic, the Central Catholic coach, said they're going to be real young, and so it's going to be a matter of how quickly they can grow up and stuff. But that's always a good game. That's a little rivalry there, Antonian and Central Catholic. That's like Boston College playing Notre Dame or something, Two Catholic schools, they don't quite like each other, okay? And so
long history there.
Yeah.
In TAPS D2, District 4 covers the San Antonio schools. There are two of them, and they compete against some schools from Corpus Christi and Brownsville. We're talking about Holy Cross and San Antonio Christian.
Yeah, Holy Cross, saying earlier, if you want to go watch a high school game, and you want to go see kids that just play for the sheer joy, and they're gonna be intense and all that, your team to go watch is Holy Cross. They're obviously a Catholic school, a private school, but they're right in the middle of a barrio over there by near St. Mary's, by our barrio, just a very poor area around there, but a lot of working class people, a lot of pride. Those kids, the kids that go to Holy Cross, their parents really sacrifice. That's not to say that the other private schools don't sacrifice. Everybody sacrifice, even the people that send their kids to public school. But you know what I'm talking about as far as private, because you've got to pay for the tuition and all. Well, those are poor areas. That's a poor area, and they really sacrifice. There's kids that have been going there, brothers and sisters going on. And so if you go there and you see how they play, boy, they love Holy Cross and they play hard. Mike Harrison is their coach. Perfect. He's just perfect for Holy Cross. They love the guy. He coaches them hard, but he loves them hard, like they say. He's a heck of a coach. And Holy Cross went 7-4 last year. They won the district. And as you were saying, Cameron, it's Corpus Christi John Paul II, Brownsville St. Joseph, and San Antonio Christian. And then I have to say this about San Antonio Christian. Maybe we haven't done enough on that. Is that they're coached by a fellow named Henry Ellard. There was an All-Pro wide receiver for the Rams years back, and he's a I think he wound up coming down here because his wife got a job here, and he came down. He was on the staff as an assistant coach, done a great job there, and people say he's just a great guy, and stuff. And so we got to go out there and do a story on
the
him.
Lions.
The Lions. Yeah, and one of their most notable alums, I guess, would be Corey Robinson that played at David Robinson's son that played at Notre Dame. That he got ahead. Unfortunately, he didn't get to finish. He didn't go out. He quit before senior year because of the head injury. I mean, he didn't want to risk getting another concussion. But yeah, they've got they've got a good program out there. But so it's going to be interesting. And like I said, last year, Holy Cross goes 3-0 in district and finishes 7-4. Didn't win a playoff game, and that's the thing about some of these schools. They say, "Well, we want to win a playoff game because then you win a playoff game, you want to win another one and stuff." But it's hard to win that. It's hard to get over that hump sometimes.
And Holy Cross, you said they're on the west side. They play their games out on the east side, though, at Wheatley Heights, I believe.
Yeah, they play at Wheatley Heights. They don't have a stadium there and all. You know, one other thing, too, Cameron, is that's been different about this season is that, you know, back in the day, not so long ago, it was the off season, and then it was summer, and then see you later, and we'll see you when we reconvene, you know, in early August for 2 days of preseason workouts. Well, then the UIL came in and said, okay, you know, we're going to let you. Coaches always used to open the gym, you know, and for you, and you could go lift weights, play basketball, whatever. But it wasn't sanctioned by the UIL, and coaches couldn't coach you and stuff. They would just open the facility and all that. Well, then they had the strength and conditioning program where they said for 6 weeks, coaches can work out kids in all sports, not only football, can work out kids and supervise them for X number of only 4 days out of the week for 6 weeks. Well, then this year, the UIL added this to the ball of wax. They said you can coach sports specific for 2 hours a week. So these football guys that throw and can't do much with a lineman because there's no pads, obviously. But you can throw the ball and you can run plays and you can run team, but it's all two below and it's all tag and stuff like that. So there's good side and bad side. Careful what you wish for, because I've had more than one coach tell me it's a different kind of summer and it'll shake itself out. They said, you know, we got to make sure we don't burn the kids out. I know one coach that gave their kids like 3 weeks off in July. And he says, we don't want to burn out the players and we don't want to burn out the coaches. You know, because a lot of times those coaches are being paid very little or not at all. And they're going out there and there's got to be time for families, you know, in summertime.
Absolutely.
For vacation and stuff. So I only bring that up because it's added something. It's a variable, you know, and we'll see how that, and the coaches will do a good job of working with that, you know, and they'll get adjusted, they'll adapt, but that was different this summer. So those kids are pretty
busy.
prepared.
They
were busy, and you know, in a way that's good. Not in a way. I mean, it's always good when kids are busy and stuff, but you have to. Football is such a tough sport. You know, you're outside and it's summer.
That's to say nothing of those 7-on-7 leagues in the summer.
That's changed. That's changed Texas high school football. Look at the way they throw the ball.
It's professionalized almost. And you're talking about really 15, 16, 17-year-olds, but the number of reps they're getting is just so different than it was a generation ago.
Yeah. The passing game is just something else. And there is some concern by some coaches that maybe it's going the way of all these select, like soccer, basketball. And they always said football was the last bastion that, you know, where it was kind of insulated against that. Well, now it's kind of, you know, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Proof's in the pudding, as they say.
David, high school football kickoff just a few days away now. That first week there are a couple really good games. Is there any one in particular you have circled?
Well, Johnson is playing Brandeis. That's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be at Heroes this year. That's going to be a good game. And just take a Brandeis. They're in that Big Ten, like I said. So that's their only non-district game. So it's going to be a lot of talent out there. And so the season starts
August 29th or 30th.
Yeah, right. So it's right around the corner, and there's nothing like it. And you know, people I've not met people from the north that come down and they go, "What is it about you guys in Texas high school football?" And I said, well, you've got to be here to know what we're talking about, and you have to experience it and all. But one of the reasons that it's so popular too is because these kids, they're our kids. They're our kids. They've grown up around here. You know, if you go to college, you know, whatever, you know, it's guys are being recruited from out of state sometimes, other cities. Nothing wrong with that. That's the nature of the game. But high school, it's just different, and especially here in Texas, you know, like even in our area. You have the urban settings where we have our stadiums and you have the loyalties and all that, but then you go into the outlying areas, the smaller towns.
Those hill country towns when they all come together.
They all come together, exactly.
That's what those. This is a mythology.
Yeah,
there's
some certain romance to it in that, especially the smaller schools. You know, I remember we went to Falls City, which is Class 2A, and they've got a lot of those small schools. They have a hurricane fence around the state, and you see the ranchers come. I don't want to sound cold. I get kind of chills, but and they lean up against the fence, and they'll be watching the game. And in between plays, they'll talk about feed prices and about the cattle. Then they stop the ball again. They'll do that. Then they'll come back, and it's just really it's and then the whole community. It's a social event.
Absolutely.
The people go, and you can have everybody from the town drunk to the mayor. They're going to be there. They're going to be pulling for their team.
You have the Pee Wee players who are all wearing their uniforms, and the cheerleaders and the band,
Yes.
and it really is something special.
And it really, in its production, whether it's there or then when you come here and you're at Judson or you go to Brand, is that I know Jim Streety, who's certainly a good authority, said, think about high school football. It's a production. The game's the game. The game's the centerpiece. But then think about it. You got the band, you got the cheerleaders, you got the drill teams, you got the honor, the honor guard, the ROTC. There's a lot of people involved in putting that game on, not just the coaches and the players, stuff. So it's just really it's a phenomenon. It really is. In Texas, it really is a phenomenon.
It's a visual phenomenon. It's a great storytelling phenomenon. We'll have all of that for you on KENS5 and KENS5.com throughout the season. Thanks so much for joining us. For David Flores, I'm Cameron Songer. See you next time.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.